Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Happy Halloween! If you're watching this on Halloween, I'm making this on Halloween with 12 fabulous pieces that you could use for trick-or-treating, or to scare your neighbors, or to simply celebrate the day. I have to say something, though, about this whole business. I grew up, Halloween was a holiday for kids. You cut a couple holes in a bed sheet, you threw it over your head, you got some candy, and then my parents let me keep like the 10 candy things I wanted the most, and everything else got donated to, the hospital or charity or something like that. That's the way they did it. But, it was fun and it was cute. We would take the apples that had the razor blades out. And then as we got a little older, they stopped putting razor blades in the apples and they started injecting them with heroin. It got more sophisticated. And we were always told as children, never take fruit, never take anything that's unwrapped, because the crazy people were out there trying to kill you. That's what made trick-or-treating so much fun, of course, the element of risk. But now, oh my God, it's become a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, I always know, there was always the famous Halloween parade in Greenwich Village, but that was a fun, entertaining, gay community sort of, drag thing. The freak show in Greenwich Village that we all went to and had a wonderful time. But the idea that like adults dress up in costumes and go to Halloween parties, and that people do all of this stuff, I mean, it is, after all, it was originally, it's All Saints' Day, or, it was a holiday religiously, originally, way back at the dawn of time. And then it just became a kid's thing. And now it's like, it's just a business. And so I find the whole Halloween brouhaha rather puzzling. And maybe it's just because of my age. It is because of my age. I know it's because of my age. And it's really caught on all over the world. And I have to give a shout out, because the person who started Halloween in Italy was my sister. I have to tell you this. This is very funny. She was living in Italy. And she is living in Italy. And my nephew, who is half Italian and half American because of my sister, and who speaks both languages absolutely fluently and could switch back and forth in mid-sentence and could do that when he was 2. It was kind of amazing. My sister wanted him to get into as much of the, American fun stuff as the Italian fun stuff. So there was no real Halloween in Italy, certainly no trick-or-treating. So she got him and his friends together on Halloween and dressed them all up and had him go, banging up and down the Corso Garibaldi in Milan at all these businesses, telling people to give them stuff because no one had any clue what they were doing. These kids would walk into these stores and nobody was prepared. Certainly, people weren't prepared. So they did businesses, and they walked into, things like, the cell phone store and had the guy go to the back and give them a soda. They went to the greengrocer and they got a potato. They did all this stuff, and it really took off. It really started to take off year after year. The enthusiasm for it built, and as people began to figure out what it was, and now apparently there is Halloween, at least at some level, in Italy as a part of the business. But originally it was my sister and my nephew Jack, and my sister Jody. So good work, guys, getting the word out. I thought that was really charming. So assuming that you're doing the Halloween thing, and, when I drive around now in Connecticut, where I live part of the time and whatnot, you just see these yards. They're made up like, the Christmas light displays, only with Halloween stuff, with black cats and witches and pumpkins. And it's unreal what people do for this rather silly little holiday. But they do. So I am doing my part. Here is the heavy-duty classical Halloween list. Are you ready? First, I'm starting with 3 of the most typical Halloween-y type pieces that people will use. And some of you already mentioned to me. They're the obvious choices. And then I'm going to go off wherever I want to go off, because it's just more fun that way, to give you some of the more interesting repertoire. First, the Bartok, music for strings, percussion, and celesta. That is, oh my, not the whole thing. These multi-movement pieces, you have to pick and choose. The first movement and the third movement are the ones to do for the most part. They appeared in Kubrick's The Shining, And I mean, for obvious reasons, it's absolutely horror movie music, terrifying, fabulous, scary, really scary music, not like fun Halloween music. For that, you would, it's not on my list, but I'm just going to say anyway, the Danse Macabre or something like this, where you have, the skeletons playing the xylophone on their bones, the cute little kitty Halloween thing. But we're doing Halloween for adults, mostly. Next, of course, Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain. It's a witch's Sabbath, and a very good witch's Sabbath. It's very exciting, and it was in Fantasia, and it has, it's threatening and nasty and turbulent, and it sounds really great. But even that isn't wonderful for its whole length. The middle section is kind of tame, and then the whole ending, after the sun comes up and the spirits disperse, you've got that interminable, da-dum-bum-bum, ba-dum-bum, the church bell. That's not Halloween. That's much too nice. So you have to sort of take it off and start over. Then third, the Berlioz Symphony Fantastique, only the last movement, which again is the Dream of the Witch's Sabbath. And that has the Dies Irae in it, da ba da dum da bum bum bum, with the church bells and all that, nice and spooky. It's very spooky. But the funny thing about it is that it has become such an iconic exemplar of spookiness that, again, it's almost a kid's piece. When we listen to it now, it sounds like a cartoon. It sounds very cartoonish. The part where the violins are playing with the back of their bows, col legno, it's called, with the wood, clickety, 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 and the woodwind's going, I mean, it's just, you just sort of want to giggle. It's spooky, creepy, funny, spooky, creepy. That's what makes it sort of a hallucinogenic dream, actually, because that's what cartoons are, after all, in a way, sort of garish, embroideries of reality in a fantastical sort of way. So the last movement of the Symphonie Fantastique, and those are it, along with the Danse Macabre, basically. Those are your sort of basics. Now we can go off on our own and have a little more fun. I'm going for the gusto here. Alan Pettersson's Eighth Symphony. Now, Pettersson's symphonies are, the apotheosis of dismal and creepy and dark and heavy and scary. They are scary. The climaxes of this symphony are hair-raising. Absolutely hair-raising. And they're all based on this same sort of frozen repetition of a simple melodic interval. Da-da, ba-da. It just does that over and over again. It's like frozen in horror while the orchestra goes crazy behind it. It's quite similar in a way to what Bartok does in his third movement. The idea of using, repetition of these tiny, tiny little motives that are unchanging in an environment of terror. And it just makes it even scarier. It's like like the scream, that frozen gesture, that sort of thing. It's wonderful. So Pettersson's Eighth is definitely a Halloween piece, and you can play the whole thing. That's the point. It never cheers up, not especially. So that works really, really well. Next, Schnittke. You could play a lot of Schnittke. I mean, the Second Cello Concertos, any of the late symphonies. He was stuck in horror movie mode for most of his career. But I have the Faust cantata, because it has the most fabulous, fabulous number. The Es geschah, which I've talked about before. It's how it begins. Es geschah zwischen 12 und einer in der Nacht. It's actually sung by an alto, but it sounds kind of like that if you get the right alto. And, it's scary. It talks about how Faust was killed and dismembered, and it's a tango on top of it all with a flexitone going. I have a flexitone over there. I can do it. Wow. What fun. It's just a really scary piece. It's just fabulous. We used to play it at HMV Records at midnight to closing time to scare everybody away. And it worked quite well. Turn it up loud enough. It's fantastic. And vocal music, scary vocal music is sort of in a class of its own. I mean, it's really, you have to find the right one. But if you do, It works really well, and particularly because this is in German. And if you're playing it in countries where nobody knows German, it sounds even more evil and demonic just because nobody knows what anyone is saying. But it sounds really, really creepy. So the Schnittke Faust cantata is definitely a Halloween piece. After that, Martinu, one of my favorite composers who I've been talking about on this channel, the central movement of his Concerto for two-string orchestras, piano, and timpani. It is a fabulous essay in expressionistic horror. It really, really is. There's one part at the very beginning of the movement as it works to its first big climax where the string parts start cascading and falling chromatic scales. It's like an image of Dali's melting clocks in music. The whole scene is just blurring and hard, and the piano's going with glissandos. Oh my God, it's amazing. Absolutely fabulous. Try out that second movement. It also makes a great ringtone, by the way. Whether it's Halloween or not, I use it. It turns people's heads, I assure you. Then Shostakovich, of course, Symphony No. 15, which is just death-obsessed and spooky as hell. The second and fourth movements, not the first and third, but the second movement, that slow movement that begins with that scarifying chorale and those creepy, cello and their bass and trombone solos, and the heart attack chord, that dissonant chord that's screechy, and oh my God, it's scary. And so is the finale with that Passacaglia, boom, 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 boom. And over which there's this whole huge climax builds up, and then the staring out into infinity ending with the tick-tock percussion, it goes bum 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 bum. There we go. I used to be able to do it better. I can't. Oh well, not anymore. So that's that. Shostakovich's 15th is fabulous. Honegger, the Symphony No. 3, the Liturgique, that begins sort of like Jaws on steroids. It's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. A scream of horror, the opening of the symphony. The whole first movement is basically a scream of horror. The slow movement is brooding and moody, and the last movement is mechanical horror. It's a march. It's a march that just has this terrifying theme. Dum pa da 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 dum da 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 ba bum 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 ba da da dum. And then the woodwinds come in with yeah like that. It's fabulous. Absolutely fantastic. It also has a peaceful ending, but you get a good 20-25 minutes out of it before you get there. So that's a terrific Halloween piece. It's going to really shake some people up, depending on where you are in it. Then, here's an obvious choice, but no one ever talks about it in connection with Halloween, and they should, because it's perfect. The Isle of the Dead by Rachmaninoff. You could also do The Isle of the Dead by Reger, but it's not nearly as deadly as the Rachmaninoff. The Rachmaninoff is spooky. Spooky, creepy. It also has the Dies Irae in it later on. Da bum ba bum bum da, da, just that, it's fantastic. And that is a wonderful, wonderful, exercise in sustained mood. 20 minutes long. Do 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 boo do 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 boo do 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 do. And the wonderful thing about it is that most of it is in 5/8. So it's 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2, and that limping rhythm makes it so much more disturbing than it otherwise would be. It really, really a fabulous work for Halloween. Try it. I mean, it's going to be perfect. Trust me. Oh, we have 3 left. Okay, now what would Halloween horror movie music be? What would it be without something for the organ, that quintessential instrument of horror? Why is the organ so horrible? Well, because it's totally inexpressive. It's cold. It's mechanical. We understand that it's mechanical. It has very little human quality to it at all. That's what makes it an excellent instrument for church music, for spiritual music, for music that attempts to be supra-human. Well, now most people, when it comes to organ music, are going to go the fan of the opera route and do the Bach toccata and fugue in D minor. which I think is a cop-out, frankly. I mean, because that's a very beautiful work. And the only way it works is if you kind of ignore, well, you have to ignore the fugue entirely, and then you have to sort of, not even the whole toccata, it's only the opening. Then that pile up. That's the part that gets you, right? It's the pile up, that huge buildup of sonority. That's scary. Well, I got a piece that's nothing but pile up. So forget the Bach. Messiaen, Les Ténèbres, which means the darkness. Actually, I think it's plural. It's the darknesses, from his Livre du Saint Sacrement for organ. That sounds like someone is just basically taking their forearms and going on the whole organ keyboard for several minutes. It's very, very frightening. It really is. And it'd be perfect spooky, like if you're having trick-or-treat things and you've got your house all set up and the cute little kitties are walking up and, you want them to not spend too much time near your place. Play that. It will absolutely scare the crap out of them. It's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. So Messiaen is definitely a Halloween character. Second to last, well, here's the perfect piece too. No one listens to it. They should. It's perfect for the Halloween too. George Crumb, A Haunted Landscape. One of his very few orchestral works. It's a tone poem. It's not very long. I don't know, what is it, about 12 or 15 minutes or something? It's not terribly long. It's mostly very quiet, incredibly spooky. It does exactly what the title says. It's a haunted landscape. And that's what you want for Halloween, a haunted landscape. Why people haven't pulled this one out very often, I have no clue. It should be enormously popular. It's a wonderful piece of music. A very, very spacey and spooky piece, and perfect for the occasion. However, my last piece, my climax of Halloween music, this one may surprise you. It really might. But if you really think about it and listen to it, I think you'll agree with me. It's Sibelius's Tapiola, his last great tone poem. Now, Tapiola is the dwelling of the forest god. Tapio is the dwelling, is the god. The god's name is Tapio. And la in Finnish means the place of. It's one of those, and endlessly, declined suffixes in Finnish. They have like 26 cases or declensions. It's nuts, that language. And Tapiola is the place where the forest god dwells, and it is big, and it is desolate, and it is spooky, and brooding, and mysterious, and atmospheric. And I think Tapiola is an absolutely terrifying piece of music. I really do, until the very last minute when the air clears, because it ends with that terrifying storm, that unbelievably scary storm with all string tremolos going, the brass are going, like that. Is, oh my God, it's terrifying. And that big storm, when it finally winds down, going, it finally clears the air in a few long chords that bring the piece to the end. But before that, you've got 18 minutes of total atmospheric terror, spooky creepiness, with one sort of light, mysterious, fairy-like interlude. It's not very long. It's a little bit of relief, but basically it's just two huge thematic groups. One of them just goes, ya da 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 dum bum bum bum. It's just that over this ya da ya da. Very, very simple, very monotonous, very, very scary. And then a second group, which is dissonant. It's just a high-pitched, dissonant string harmony that freezes the music in place as it goes yum ba da 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 dum ba da. Well, those strings are going ooh, 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 and the piccolos go wah like this once in a while. It's just fabulously spooky. A perfect Halloween piece. It really is. So there you have it, my friends. 12 fantastic Halloween spook pieces. Go have a good time and enjoy the day. Keep on listening and take care.